I learned early that silence has weight. In rooms like this, silence presses against your ribs until breathing feels like betrayal. The floors smell like polished wood and old money. The air carries leather, gun oil, and the faint bitterness of secrets that never made it to confession. They think I'm resting. They think I'm recovering. They think I belong to the past version of myself, the waitress who spilled wine, who flinched too late, who didn't understand what she'd done by looking a king in the eye. What they don't see is how I listen, how I count footsteps through walls, how I memorize voices, schedules, patterns, how I catalog weaknesses the way other women collect scars. I move softly here. I keep my head down. I let them underestimate me, because invisibility is still my greatest weapon. But tonight changes something. Tonight, Dante Moretti gives me my first real task, one that requires blood, not observation. And when I step forward to accept it, I feel the shift. For the first time since my parents died, I am no longer running. I am stepping out of the shadows, not to be seen, but to end something that should have died years ago. Before we go any further, if you believe the most dangerous people are the ones nobody notices, tap like right now. This story isn't about power. It's about what happens when someone invisible stops running. Comment silence if you're ready for a story where every choice has a price. And subscribe because what happens next changes everything. The suite Dante gave her had 16-foot ceilings and windows that didn't open. Alessia noticed these things the way other women might notice thread count or the quality of champagne. Exit routes. Vulnerabilities. Cages dressed as sanctuaries. She stood at the glass now, watching dawn bleed across Lake Michigan, turning the water from black to bruised purple. 3 weeks since she'd walked into Dante Moretti's empire with nothing but the clothes on her back and a USB drive containing enough of Victor's secrets to buy her passage. 3 weeks of sleeping with a knife under her pillow and waking to the phantom weight of Victor's hands around her throat. The illusion of safety was its own kind of violence. "You're up early." Alessia didn't flinch. She'd heard the door, cataloged the footsteps, identified Dante by the weight of his tread before he'd spoken. Old habits. Survival habits. "I don't sleep much," she said. "Neither do I." He moved beside her, two predators sharing territorial space with careful courtesy. He wore a suit despite the hour, charcoal brioni, no tie, the kind of wealth that whispered instead of shouted. "Coffee?"
No.
"Liar." He smiled, handing her a cup she hadn't noticed him carrying. "You drink it black with 2 sugars. You take your tea with honey, but only when you're injured. You don't eat breakfast unless someone forces you." The observation landed like a blade between her ribs. Victor had known these things too. Had weaponized intimacy until she couldn't tell surveillance from care. "You've been watching me," she said flatly. "I protect my investments." Dante's reflection studied her with those winter eyes. "And you, Alessia Romano, are a considerable investment." She sipped the coffee. "Perfect temperature. Perfect sweetness. Perfect control. What do you want?"
Direct.
"I appreciate that." He turned to face her fully, close enough that she could see the scar bisecting his left eyebrow, some old violence he wore like jewelry. "There's a man in my organization, Marcus Vega, former Chicago PD, 10 years on my payroll, and currently selling information to the Castellanos." Alessia's pulse didn't quicken. She wouldn't let it. "You want confirmation?" "I want him gone." Dante's voice carried the casual finality of a man ordering dinner. "Permanently. Publicly. A message that betrayal has consequences." The coffee turned to ash in her mouth. This was the test. The price of sanctuary. Victor had given her the same choice once, loyalty measured in bodies, safety purchased with someone else's blood. "When?" she asked.
Tonight.
"The docks. Midnight." Dante's hand found her shoulder, warm through the silk of her robe. "Welcome to the family, Alessia." He left her standing at the window, watching the sun climb higher, burning away the last shadows. The illusion of safety shattered like glass. The warehouse smelled like rust and lake water, and the particular terror that came from men who knew they were going to die. Marcus Vega knelt in the center of the concrete floor, wrists zip-tied behind his back, blood crusting at his temple where someone had convinced him to stop running. Alessia stood in the shadows, counting Dante's men.
8.
All armed. All watching her with the flat curiosity of hyenas waiting to see if the new lion could hunt. He doesn't look like much, Dante said beside her, voice carrying across the cavernous space. But traitors never do. That's what makes them dangerous. Marcus lifted his head, squinting against the naked bulbs swinging overhead. Mid-40s, soft around the middle, with the kind of face that disappeared in crowds. A nobody, a footnote. The kind of man Victor had taught her to kill without hesitation because hesitation meant doubt, and doubt meant weakness, and weakness meant the gun turned on you instead. Please. Marcus's voice cracked. I have a daughter. She's 12. She has a college fund worth $200,000. Dante's interruption was surgical. Funded by the Castellanos. Very generous of them, considering you've only been feeding them information for 6 months. The warehouse went silent except for Marcus's breathing, quick, shallow, the rhythm of prey. Dante turned to Alessia. What do you think? Does he deserve mercy? It was another test. Everything was a test. The answer didn't matter. Only how she answered, whether she flinched, whether the weapon Dante thought he'd acquired would actually fire when aimed. Mercy is expensive, she said quietly. True. Dante smiled, then gestured to the shadows. 2 more men emerged, dragging someone between them. A woman. Younger. Late 20s, dark hair matted with blood, hands bound. This is Sofia Castellano, Dante continued, conversational as a professor delivering a lecture. Marcus's handler. His lover. The reason a 12-year-old girl will grow up without a father. The woman, Sofia, lifted her head. Even battered, even terrified, something defiant burned in her eyes. Something that recognized Alessia, not as a person, but as a mirror. Another woman in a world of men who traded lives like currency. Dante handed Alessia a gun. The weight was familiar. Comforting. Horrifying. Choose, he said simply. The traitor or his handler. One lives. One dies. You decide which message we send. 8 men watched. Marcus wept. Sofia stared. And Alessia realized with crystalline clarity that this wasn't about loyalty or justice or even punishment. This was about making her complicit. Making her cross a line she couldn't uncross. Binding her to Dante's empire with blood instead of contracts. This is how they own you, Victor whispered in her memory. Not with chains. With choices you can't take back. Her finger found the trigger. Who dies, Alessia? Dante asked. She met his eyes and smiled. Let me think about it. The burner phone appeared in her coat pocket like a tumor. Alessia found it at 3 a.m., returning from the warehouse where she'd made her choice. Marcus dead, Sofia bleeding but alive, Dante's approval warm as poison in her veins. The phone was old, a Nokia relic from when communication meant something other than surveillance, and it contained exactly one message. Cathedral.
Noon.
Come alone, or the girl joins her father. No signature. No need. She knew Victor's syntax the way trauma survivors knew their abuser's footsteps. She should have told Dante. Should have handed over the phone, let him mobilize his army, turn this into the war Victor clearly wanted. Should have stayed in her gilded cage, where at least the rules were visible. Instead, she stood in her suite's bathroom, running water to mask sound, and called the only number saved in the phone's memory. It rang once. Hello, little ghost. Victor's voice slid through the speaker like oil, smooth and suffocating. I was wondering how long you'd wait. 7 years of training kept her voice level. How did you find me? Alessia. Sweet, brilliant Alessia. She heard his smile, that particular curve of lips that preceded violence. Did you really think I'd let my best student disappear? I've known where you were for 17 days. I've watched you play house with Dante Moretti. I've seen you kill for him. Does he fuck you, as well as I trained you to kill? Her reflection in the mirror looked carved from marble. Empty.
Perfect.
Exactly what he'd made her. What do you want? What I've always wanted. You.
Home.
Where you belong. The warmth in his voice was obscene. But I'm a reasonable man. I'll give you a choice. Come to the cathedral at noon. Alone. We'll talk like civilized people. And if I don't, Sofia Castellano has a younger sister. 15 years old. Pretty thing. Attends St. Catherine's Prep, walks home alone on Tuesdays. The threat was casual, almost bored. I'd hate for something unfortunate to happen because you forgot your manners. The water ran. Her heart didn't. 1 hour, Victor continued. Just you and me, discussing your future. Refuse, and I'll burn Dante's empire to the ground with you inside it. Either way, sweetheart, you're coming home. It's just a question of how many bodies we stack getting there. The line went dead. Alessia stared at the phone, then at her reflection, then at the knife hidden behind the mirror's frame. Victor knew where she was. Had known for over 2 weeks. Had watched her audition for Dante's protection, like some cosmic joke. She'd traded one cage for another, and both men held keys. The bathroom door opened. Dante stood there, fully dressed despite the hour, eyes sharp with the same predatory intelligence that had kept him alive in a world of wolves. We need to talk, he said quietly. Her hand was already on the knife. Yes, Alessia agreed. We do. I learned to lie before I learned to love. Victor taught me that truth was a luxury, something soft people indulged in before the world broke them. But standing in Dante's study at 4 a.m, watching him slide a photograph across his desk, I realized some lies cost more than others. The woman in the photo was maybe 30. Dark eyes, warm smile, the kind of face that belonged in family albums, not execution files. Elena Russo, Dante said. Kindergarten teacher. Volunteers at St. Mary's Soup Kitchen. Pays her taxes. Perfect citizen. I kept my expression blank, but something cold crawled up my spine. Why are you showing me this? Because she's Victor Constantine's niece. He leaned back, studying me with those pale eyes that missed nothing. His brother's only daughter. The one person in this world he actually gives a damn about. The trap snapped shut so quietly I almost didn't hear it. You want me to kill her? I said flatly. I want you to prove where your loyalty lies. Dante's voice was silk over steel. Victor's been quiet since you came to me. Too quiet. Men like him don't forget debts, and you, Alessia, are a considerable debt. My mind raced through calculations. Elena Russo was leverage insurance, the kind of pressure point that could force Victor into mistakes. But she was also bait, Dante testing whether I'd murder an innocent to prove I'd severed all ties to my past. She hasn't done anything, I heard myself say.
No.
Dante smiled, and it was worse than his anger. But that's not really the point, is it? Victor trained you, protected you, made you into what you are. Some part of you still thinks you owe him something. This is how you prove you don't. I thought about Victor's hands on my shoulders, his voice in the dark. You're mine, little ghost. Always mine. I thought about 7 years of perfect obedience, of becoming exactly what he wanted, until I'd almost forgotten there was anything else to be. When? I asked.
Tonight.
Her apartment. Make it look like a robbery. He stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease. And Alessia? I'll know if you warn her. I have people watching. I nodded. Turned to leave. One more thing. His voice stopped me at the door. Where were you last night between 2 and 4 a.m.? The burner phone burned in my memory, like a brand. Victor's voice. Come home, sweetheart. Couldn't sleep, I said smoothly. Walked the grounds. Alone. Always alone. Dante crossed the room in 3 strides, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat of him. His hand caught my chin, tilting my face toward the light. You're lying, he said softly. Your left eye twitches when you lie. Just slightly. Right there. My heart turned to ice. I'm not. Show me your phone. I don't have. His hand was already in my coat pocket, pulling out my regular cell. He scrolled through it with deliberate calm, finding nothing because there was nothing to find. The burner was hidden in my suite, under a loose floorboard Victor had taught me to install. Satisfied? I asked. He handed it back, but his eyes stayed on my face, reading me like a map. Kill Elena Russo by midnight, he said. Or I'll assume you're still taking orders from the man who wants me dead. The door closed behind me. I had 8 hours to choose between murdering an innocent woman or exposing myself as Victor's spy. And Dante already knew I was lying. The cathedral was empty, except for ghosts. I arrived at noon exactly, counting exits, mapping sight lines, my hand wrapped around the knife in my pocket. Victor sat in the third pew, back to the door, arrogant enough or stupid enough to present his spine like a gift. Except Victor Constantine was never stupid. You came, he said without turning. I'm touched. You threatened a child. I slid into the pew beside him, maintaining distance, maintaining control. That's low even for you. Is it? He finally looked at me, and God help me, part of me still recognized him as safety. 7 years of Stockholm Syndrome didn't evaporate just because I'd changed cages. I trained you better than to pretend morality matters in our world. What do you want, Victor? To tell you the truth. He smiled, gentle as a noose. Something I should have done years ago. He pulled out a tablet, tapped it twice, and slid it toward me. Surveillance photos filled the screen. Me, age 17, walking into his facility for the first time. Me learning to shoot, to fight, to kill. Me becoming his perfect weapon. Then other photos. Recent ones. Me with Dante. Me killing Marcus Vega. Me standing at windows in a suite I thought was private. You've been watching, I said. Always. He swiped to a new image. Architectural plans, shipping manifests, financial records. Do you know what this is? I studied the documents, my training kicking in automatically. Dante's heroin operation. The one running through. I stopped. Through your ports. Very good. Victor's pride was obscene. Dante Moretti thinks he's building an empire. What he's actually building is evidence. 2 years of documented criminal activity, all flowing through infrastructure I control. When the FBI raids him, and they will, they'll find enough to put him away for life. My blood turned to slush. You set him up. I set both of you up. He turned to face me fully, and there was something almost fond in his expression. You were brilliant, Alessia. My best student. But you knew too much. About my operations, my contacts, my methods. I couldn't let you retire. Couldn't risk you eventually selling those secrets to stay alive. The cathedral spun. 7 years. 7 years of perfect loyalty, and he'd been planning my execution the entire time. So, you let me run to Dante? I whispered. Knowing he'd use me. Knowing the FBI would kill you both when they came for him. Clean, efficient, no loose ends. Victor's hand found mine, warm and monstrous. I'm sorry, sweetheart. But you understand. It's just business. I understood. God help me. I understood perfectly. I'd been a dead woman the moment Victor decided I knew too much. Running to Dante hadn't saved me. It had just changed my execution date. There's still time, Victor continued. Come back. Work for me again. I can redirect the investigation, keep you safe. You just have to do one thing. What? Kill Dante Moretti. Tonight. Before he figures out what's coming. I laughed, because anything else would have been screaming. You want me to murder the only person protecting me from you. I want you to survive. His voice dropped, intimate and horrifying. He's using you, Alessia. Just like I did. The only difference is I loved you. Love. As if that word meant anything in his mouth. I stood, my reflection ghostly in the stained glass. 2 men wanted me dead. 2 empires poised to collapse. And I was the match they both thought they controlled. I'll think about it, I said. Victor smiled. Don't think too long. The FBI raids Dante's operation in 72 hours. After that, you're just collateral damage. I walked out of the cathedral into killing sunlight. 72 hours. Elena Russo would die tonight if I didn't kill her. Dante would die in 3 days if I didn't warn him. And Victor thought I'd come crawling back to the man who'd authored my death warrant. For the first time in 7 years, I smiled and meant it. They'd both underestimated me. That was going to cost them everything. The first lie I fed Dante was small, elegant, poisonous. Victor made contact. I told him at sunset, standing in his study while Chicago burned gold outside the windows. He wants to meet. Says he has information about a federal investigation into your operations. Dante's expression didn't change, but his stillness became something predatory. When? 2 days. Navy Pier. He's offering a truce. In exchange for? Me. I let vulnerability flicker across my face. Calculated, controlled, exactly enough to seem real. He wants me to come back. Says if I don't, he'll feed the FBI everything he has on you. It was beautiful, really. True enough to be credible, false enough to redirect Dante's attention exactly where I needed it. Victor had taught me to lie like this. Wrap deception in truth until they became indistinguishable. Dante circled me slowly, a shark tasting blood in the water. And what did you tell him? That I'd consider it. I met his eyes. I wanted to talk to you first. The lie landed perfectly. I watched Dante's suspicion war with possessiveness, watched him calculate whether I was genuine or playing him. In the end, ego won. It always did with men like him. You're not going anywhere, he said finally. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. Victor, exposed, vulnerable. If he's willing to meet, he's desperate. Or it's a trap. Of course it's a trap. Dante smiled. But he's not the only one who can set them. I nodded, playing the obedient soldier, while my mind raced ahead. Dante would prepare for war. Would move his pieces into position. Would never suspect that the real trap was already sprung. What about Elena Russo? I asked quietly. His expression hardened. You have 4 hours. I left his study and went straight to my suite, pulling out the burner phone with hands that didn't shake. The second lie I composed carefully, text instead of voice, untraceable. FBI raid in 72 hours, DNOs. Moving shipment to backup location. Pier 7. Thursday, 2 a.m. Come alone, and we can both disappear. I sent it to Victor's number, then destroyed the phone. 2 lies.
2 men.
Both dancing to music I was composing. The truth was simpler than either of them realized. I wasn't choosing sides. I was burning both houses down. Elena Russo's apartment was in a quiet neighborhood where people still believed in safety. I picked the lock at 11 p.m., my heart a machine, my hands steady. She was asleep in her bedroom, trusting enough or tired enough to believe locked doors meant something. I stood over her bed for exactly 30 seconds. Then I left. At 11:47, I texted Dante a photo of Elena's driver's license, taken from her wallet, and a single line. It's done. At 11:53, I sent an anonymous message to Elena Russo's phone. Victor Constantine knows where you live.
Run.
At midnight, I watched from across the street as Elena Russo threw clothes into a suitcase and drove away, alive and terrified and no longer useful as leverage to anyone. My phone buzzed. Dante, good work. Tomorrow we plan Victor's execution. Another buzz. Unknown number, but I knew Victor's syntax. FBI moved their timeline. 48 hours now. Peer meeting still on. Don't be late, sweetheart. I smiled at the city lights. They thought they were hunting each other. They had no idea they were both prey. My phone buzzed a third time. A number I didn't recognize. A message that made my blood freeze. I know what you're doing. We need to talk. Vega. But Marcus Vega was dead. I'd watched Dante put a bullet in his brain. Hadn't I? The diner was the kind of place memories went to die. Cracked vinyl booths, coffee that tasted like regret, a waitress who'd stopped pretending to care sometime around 2003. I sat in the back corner at 2 a.m., watching the door, waiting for a dead man to explain how he'd survived his own execution. Marcus Vega slid into the booth across from me looking nothing like the broken man I'd watched bleed out on warehouse concrete. Clean-shaven. Alert. Very much alive. You're wondering how, he said. I'm wondering why you're stupid enough to contact me. He smiled without humor. Because you let Sophia live. That wasn't Dante's style. That was mercy, and mercy means you're not what you pretend to be. The waitress appeared, 60s, tired eyes, the invisible uniform of women who'd learned to disappear in plain sight. She poured coffee without asking, never once looking at our faces, already forgetting we existed. I watched her retreat, and suddenly I was 17 again, standing in Victor's training facility, learning the most important lesson he ever taught me. Invisibility isn't about hiding. Victor's voice echoed across years. It's about becoming exactly what people expect to see. The brain filters out the ordinary. Be ordinary and you become a ghost. He'd made me practice for months. Waitress. Janitor.
Secretary. Nurse.
I learned to carry trays, mop floors, file papers, learned to inhabit the roles so completely that security cameras would scan right past me, that witnesses would struggle to describe my face, that I could walk through locked buildings like smoke through screens. The moment you're memorable, you're mortal, Victor had said. Blend, adapt, disappear. That's how you survive. I'd used those skills to escape him. Had walked out of his compound dressed as a cleaning woman, carrying trash bags full of stolen evidence, invisible to the guards who'd trained me. But sitting across from Marcus Vega, watching the waitress who'd already forgotten us, I realized something that made my pulse quicken. Victor had taught me to disappear, which meant I could teach others. The execution was theater, I said quietly, understanding flooding through me. Dante needed to send a message. You needed to disappear. So you made a deal. Marcus nodded. Witness protection. FBI. I give them Dante. I get a new life. But the operation got complicated when you arrived. Complicated how? Because you're the key to everything. He leaned forward, urgent now. Victor set up Dante's empire to collapse. The FBI's raid isn't just about drugs. It's about destroying evidence of Victor's own operations. He's using Dante as a scapegoat, and you're the witness he can't afford to leave alive. I'd already figured that much. But Marcus's next words rewired everything. The FBI doesn't know about you yet. When they raid Dante, they'll find you. And Victor's already planted evidence, suggesting you're Dante's enforcer, responsible for 17 unsolved murders. His eyes were desperate now. They'll arrest you, Alessia. And while you're in custody, unable to defend yourself, Victor will have you killed. Prison suicide.
Clean.
Permanent. The diner spun. Not just 2 empires hunting me.
3.
The FBI weaponized, turned into Victor's execution squad without even knowing it. Why tell me this? Because Sophia's alive because of you. And because I think you're planning something that might actually work. Marcus slid a burner phone across the table. When you're ready to disappear, really disappear, call this number. I know people who can make you invisible. For real this time. He left cash for the coffee and walked out. I sat alone, watching the waitress wipe down empty tables, making the diner pristine for the next shift of ghosts. Victor had taught me to disappear. But what he'd never understood was that disappearing wasn't the same as dying. I could teach Dante's key people to vanish. Could dismantle his empire by making it evaporate. Could turn Victor's scapegoat into smoke, leaving him exposed and blamed for everything when the FBI found nothing but empty buildings and missing witnesses. The waitress glanced at me, already forgetting my face. I smiled. For the first time in 7 years, I knew exactly how to win. Dante's shipping manifest disappeared on a Wednesday. Not stolen. Not hacked. Simply gone, along with the 3 men who'd been responsible for maintaining it. By Thursday morning, 2 more warehouses were empty, their contents vanished overnight, their guards claiming they'd seen nothing, remembered no one, had simply arrived to find buildings stripped bare. I watched Dante unravel from my position by a study window, counting his tells. The tightness in his jaw. The way his fingers drummed once, just once, against his desk before going still. Control fraying at the edges. $12 million, he said quietly.
Gone.
In 72 hours. His lieutenants stood like soldiers awaiting execution. Russo, his head of security. Chin, his financial advisor. DeLuca, his oldest friend. All of them terrified. All of them guilty. None of them knowing I'd orchestrated everything. It had been almost easy. Victor taught me to kill, but he also taught me something more valuable: how to make people want to disappear. I'd spent 2 weeks identifying Dante's most vulnerable operators, the ones with families, the ones with debts, the ones who'd joined organized crime out of desperation rather than ambition. Then I'd given them what Victor gave me: a way out. New identities.
Cash.
Instructions on how to vanish so completely even the FBI couldn't find them. All they had to do was walk away from Dante's empire and take everything they could carry. Russo's missing guards hadn't been killed. They were in Toronto with new names and clean records. Chen's accountants weren't tortured for betrayal. They were in witness protection, ready to testify against Victor Constantine instead of Dante Moretti. DeLuca's warehouse crew had simply evaporated, along with enough product to cripple Dante's operation for months. "Someone's helping them run," Dante said, his voice glacial. "Someone with resources, with knowledge of our systems." "Victor," Russo suggested.
No.
Dante's eyes were winter. "Victor wants me destroyed, not dismantled. This is surgical."
Precise.
Someone who knows exactly where to cut.
My heart was a metronome. Steady. Controlled.
I'd learned from Victor's mistake. He'd wanted credit for his brilliance, wanted me to know he'd orchestrated my destruction. Ego made him visible. I would stay invisible until the very end. "What are your orders?" DeLuca asked. Dante stood, buttoning his jacket with hands that didn't shake.
Lockdown.
"No one moves product, no one contacts clients, no one leaves the city without my permission. And someone find out who the fuck is bleeding my empire dry." His eyes swept the room, landing on each lieutenant, measuring loyalty in microseconds. He looked at me last. I met his gaze with perfect calm. The loyal weapon, the protected asset, the woman who'd killed for him without hesitation. "Alessia," he said. A word. The lieutenants filed out.
The door closed.
We were alone with the city spreading below us like a game board missing half its pieces. "Tell me the truth," Dante said quietly. "Is this you?" The question should have terrified me. Instead, I felt something close to exhilaration. "If it was me," I said carefully, "I'd be dead already." "You don't tolerate betrayal."
No.
"I don't." He crossed to me, close enough that I could see the calculation behind his eyes. "But you're smart enough to know that. Which means if you were orchestrating this, you'd have already planned for the moment I suspected you." "Have you?" "Suspected me." "I suspect everyone." His hand found my face, gentle as a threat. "But you've been loyal. Proven yourself. Killed for me." I thought about Elena Russo, alive and running. About Marcus Vega, resurrected and cooperating. About every lie I'd layered so perfectly that truth and deception had become indistinguishable. "Then trust that loyalty," I said. Dante studied me for 10 more seconds, then nodded. "Victor wants to meet tomorrow. Navy Pier, like you said." His smile was cold. "I'm going to kill him. And I want you there when I do it." He left me standing at the window. 36 hours until the FBI raid. 24 until Victor and Dante destroyed each other. And Dante still thought I was his weapon. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. The waitress remembers nothing. Neither will they.
M.
Marcus. Confirming the last of Dante's people had vanished safely. Another buzz. Victor. Change of plans. Peer meeting is a setup. Dante's trying to kill you both. New location attached. I smiled at the city lights. 2 predators, both convinced they were hunting. Neither realizing the prey had become the hunter. Navy Pier at midnight was a cathedral of shadows and water, the city's lights reflecting off Lake Michigan like fallen stars. I arrived an hour early, mapping exits, planting the burner phones, positioning the pieces exactly where they needed to be. Victor thought Dante would be here. Dante thought Victor would be here. Both men had sent kill teams to ambush the other. Neither of them would show. Because I'd sent them both the same message an hour ago. Location compromised. FBI surveillance. Abort. Now I stood alone at the pier's edge, watching headlights approach from two directions, federal vehicles, moving with the confident precision of an agency about to make a historic bust. Marcus had delivered perfectly. The FBI thought they were raiding Dante's final shipment, the one piece of evidence that would seal their case. They had no idea the anonymous tip that brought them here had come from me, and the evidence they'd find would connect to Victor Constantine, not Dante Moretti. I'd spent 3 days planting it. Financial records showing Victor using Dante's operation as cover. Testimony from disappeared witnesses who'd mysteriously surfaced with detailed knowledge of Victor's crimes. Security footage, carefully edited, showing Victor's men handling the shipments that would be found here tonight. Dante's empire had evaporated. His people had vanished, turned into ghosts. There was nothing left for the FBI to prosecute because there was nothing left to find except the trail leading straight back to the man who'd trained me to be invisible. My phone buzzed. Dante, where the fuck are you? Another buzz. Victor, this was you, wasn't it? I smiled and typed the same message to both of them. You taught me to be a weapon. You forgot weapons can choose their targets. Then I threw both phones into the lake. The FBI vehicles stopped 300 yards away. Agents poured out, tactical vests gleaming, moving toward the warehouse where Marcus had helped me stage the evidence. They'd find enough tonight to destroy Victor Constantine. Enough to make him the scapegoat for everything, the drugs, the murders, the corruption. Dante would survive, but his empire was ash. His people had disappeared into new lives I'd helped them build. Without soldiers, without infrastructure, without the leverage he'd used to stay on top, he was just another criminal in a city that didn't forgive weakness. I walked away from the pier as the first agents breached the warehouse. Behind me, sirens.
Shouts.
The machinery of justice that I'd weaponized against the men who'd tried to own me. I thought about Victor's hands on my shoulders. You're mine, little ghost. I thought about Dante's test. Choose who dies. Both of them had wanted a perfect weapon. Something they could aim and fire without conscience or hesitation. They tried to kill everything human in me, believing that emotional detachment meant control. They were wrong. Control wasn't about becoming a weapon. It was about choosing when to fire and when to walk away. 3 blocks from the pier, I found Marcus waiting in an idling sedan. Sophia sat in the passenger seat, bandaged but alive, watching me with eyes that understood survival. You ready to disappear? Marcus asked. I thought about Elena Russo and her new life, about the guards and accountants and warehouse workers who'd vanished into safety, about the empire I'd dismantled one ghost at a time. I've been ready for 7 years, I said. I slid into the back seat. The car pulled away from the sirens, from the life I'd been forced to live, from the men who'd thought they could cage me. My phone, a new one, clean, untraceable, buzzed with a final message from an unknown number. The student exceeded the teacher. I'm almost proud. But we both know you can't run forever.
V.
I deleted it without responding. Victor was right about one thing. I couldn't run forever. But I didn't need forever. I just needed to stay invisible long enough to become someone new. The car merged into traffic, another anonymous vehicle in a city of ghosts. Behind us, Victor Constantine's empire burned. Ahead, the open road. And for the first time in 7 years, I was the one choosing the direction. This is where her story pauses, not ends. Everything that happens next depends on one question. Should Alessia keep playing Dante's game, or disappear before it destroys her? If you want to see what she chooses, comment continue below. If this story held you, hit like and subscribe, so if enough of you ask, I'll release what happens next.